Well, it's their appointed duty. They keep trying to tell me, yeah, that all you want to do is use me, yeah. Oh, oh. And my answer to all that use me stuff is I want to spread the news that if it feels as good getting used, well, just keep on using me until you use me up. You just use me up. My brother, yeah, he sat me right down and he talked to me. Yeah, yeah. He told me, yeah, that I ought to not let you just walk on me. No, no, no. And I'm sure he meant well. Yeah, but when our talk was through, I said, brother, if you only knew, you'd wish that you were in my shoes. But just keep on using me until you use me up. Yeah, use me up. Just use me up. Sometimes it's true, you really do abuse me. Oh yeah. You get me in a crowd of high-class people, and you act real rude to me. Yeah, yeah. But oh baby, 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 when you love me, I can't get enough. No, 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 no. I want to spread the news that if it feels this good getting used, but just keep on using me. Oh, oh, till you use me up. Just use me up. Just use me up. You talk about you using people, it all depends on what you do. It ain't too bad when you using me, 'cause I sure am using you to do the things you do. To do the things you do. Thank you. Thank you. So here is the most requested Play for Change.
Thank you.
All right.
Tell the story.
The story about this one is I was between shows, and as I often am, and I'll find a street corner somewhere, wherever city I'm at, and I'll play for change. And I was doing this one night, and I got a ticket for attracting the crowd. I didn't know that was a crime. Now I know. Got a ticket to prove it. But anyway, I attracted the crowd, and I was kind of bummed out at first, but after writing this song, I felt a little better about myself. I didn't think this was going to be a hit song. I guess technically it's not a hit since it's not on the radio or anything, but everywhere I play and play this song, people really like it. So I hope you like it too. It's called Play for Change. Mr. Policeman, I'm just playing for peace, man. I don't mean no danger. The city's filled with anger, malice, and pain. Yeah. Now, I'm not a terrorist, so don't be scared of this strap across my shoulder. It's not a gun holster, it's my guitar, and she has a name. Yeah. So let me play for change, not the kind that jingles. Let me play for change, I'll keep my guitar case closed. If you let me play for change, not the kind that folds or crinkles. Cause when I play for change, I know this might sound strange, but when I play for change, it's reward enough to know I touched the soul. Now, Mr. Policeman, you rolled up creeping and you saw me on the corner. I wasn't selling marijuana, so tell me, how am I a threat? When the people are moving, clapping and grooving and dancing to the music. But that's one way I use it to help them all forget about their problems. So let me play for change, not the kind that jingles. Let me play for change, I'll keep my guitar case closed. If you let me play for change, not the kind that folds or crinkles. Cause when I play for change, I know this might sound strange. Cause when I play for change, it's reward enough to know I touched the soul. Change is gonna come, well that's what Sam could add. But how's that change coming if we don't take initiative? Love is all we need, wrote Lennon and McCartney, and that's what I believe. So officer, please pardon me, I need to play for change, even if it's just in one man's heart. Let me play for change, cause the world is cold dark. Let me play for change, let me shine this light. Cause when I play for change, yeah, who knows, I just might touch the next Mother Teresa or Martin Luther King, yeah. If you let me play for change, it could mean everything, yeah. It could mean everything if you let me play for change. If you let me play for change, yeah. If you let me play for change, and if you pray for change, and I pray for change, then we can make a change. If you let me play for change, yeah, yeah. Oh, let me play for change, yeah, yeah. Let me play for change, yeah, yeah. Let me play for change, play. Oh, let me play for change. Yes. Woo. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks.
At age 19, American war hero Gerald French was the youngest four-engine bomber flight commander in World War II. Air Force Major French also served his country in Korea and Vietnam. This is part one of his story. America's War Heroes. Personal first-hand accounts in the words of the servicemen and women who were there.
Yeah, I'm Jerry French. Actually, my name is Gerald French, but everybody calls me Jerry. I was born in 1924, and believe it or not, I was born in the Oklahoma Panhandle, a little town called Tyrone, just south of Liberal, Kansas, about 10 miles. That was my grandmother's place. I only lived there 5 days. Then they took me and my mother. We went out to my father's ranch, cattle ranch in Colorado. And I grew up on a cattle ranch in Colorado. And of course, born in 1924, I lived through the Depression. We weren't really hungry. We had all the beef and pork and chickens and eggs and milk and everything that they didn't have in New York and Chicago, but we had it out there. So it wasn't too bad of a life. It's just the Dust Bowl that was bad, that was all. Anyway, my mother had died when I was 4 years old. My father died when I was 13. I was a freshman in high school at that time, 13 years old. 1 year later, I ran away from home. And the old judge there in the county said, Jerry, I should have appointed a guardian over you. You're a minor, but if you'll keep your nose clean, stay out of trouble, and go to school, get an education, says I won't bother you. And he didn't bother me. And I did. I went and got an education, and I never got in trouble. Never been in trouble in my life. Keep my fingers crossed. Anyway, I did that my junior year. My senior year, they had a service station. As I was saying, I leased a service station, Phillips 66. It was vacant, so I went to the local banker there. I was only 15 then. My senior year, I was 15 and 16 years old. And I said, Mr. Igo, I got this service station out here that's vacant. I want to go in business. I could lease it for 90 days, for 9 months, for $90. Can you loan me $90 to lease this service station? And so he took down a little information, and of course I had no father, no guardian, no legal, no collateral or anything. He said, okay. So he loaned me 90 bucks, and I paid him back at $10 a month, and I lived in that service station. That was my senior year. And I had a success at that. And I went up to Denver, and old Uncle Sam was out there saying, we need you. And when I enrolled at Barnes, I had my schedule, my book schedule and everything, but they wanted X number of dollars. Well, I only had 2 bits in my pocket. I saw these B-17s flying over. And I said, I want to be a pilot. So I went in and answered Uncle Sam and says, we need you. And this was in June of '41, before the war started. I had some adult advice prior to that time, said, Jerry, you should get in the service, get on the ground floor. We're going to get in the war. Get in there fast, get in there first, get on the ground floor and get some promotions. So I did, and I joined, and I told him I wanted to be a pilot. I was only 16, but the old recruiting sergeant, he thought I was 18 because I was big and heavy, and you had to be 18 then. I had my choice of Lowry at Denver, Lowry Field at Denver, they call them fields then, or at Hickam Field in Honolulu, or Kelly Field in San Antonio. And he says, they train the pilots in San Antonio. You can take any one of these 3 bases you want. What do you want? If you go to Honolulu, you got to stay 2 years. It's foreign assignment. I says, I'll go to San Antonio. I want to be a pilot. So I was on the train, went to San Antonio, told old sergeant down there I wanted to be a pilot. So he gave me a shovel, sent me out to the horse stables, and he says, okay, you're now a pilot, go pilot. And this is not a joke, this actually happened. So I went out to the horse stable with a shovel. Well, I had to wait till I was 18 to show a birth certificate. So while I was waiting, I went to St. Mary's University at night school. My old CO up there, the captain, says, okay, Private Jerry French, you want an education? I'll keep you off the guard list, the MP list, the KP list. As long as you can work for us Monday through Friday, daytime, you can go to night school, go have at it. So I went 3 nights a week to St. Mary's University on top of my Air Force work. So many X number of semester hours, I think it was 47 or something. I ended up 51 semester hours, which I believe is a little less than 2 years. Well, you had to have 2 years of college at that time to be a flying cadet, get a commission. You used to have 4 hours. 4 years. You have to have 4 now, I believe. But you had to have 2 years or pass the equivalent exam. So I took the exam and passed it because I love physics and math and science. So I passed the test and got my cadet. I went to cadets. I went to primary at Bonham. That was Jones Field at Bonham, Texas. Then I went to basic training. All this was 90 days at each one. Accountant flight training and ground school. And I flew the old PT-19s in primary, the monoplanes, the Fairchilds. Then in the basic, I went to Perrin Field at Sherman, Texas. Flew BT-13s, the old Volti vibrators, we called them. They were pretty ornery little aircraft, a big aircraft for us, really. We killed 6 people in our class in that airplane. It had a tendency to go into a secondary spin. You'd spin it intentionally. You were trained to spin. So you'd spin 3 times, count 3 times, and then you pull out. Well, when you pull out of your spin, if you didn't do it exactly right, it'd go into a secondary spin. And I watched a guy one day, he did his normal spin, he went into a secondary spin, uncontrolled, pulled out of that one, went into a third spin, spun right into the ground. After that, I went to Foster Field, Victoria, Texas. Flew AT-6 North American single-engine monoplanes, bigger airplane that had, retractable gear and all that good stuff, bigger engine. And I flew P-40s down there. I was going to be a fighter pilot, and I flew P-40s. At that time, the P-51s and P-38s weren't really in the Air Force inventory yet in any big supplies, so P-40s were their #1 fighter, more or less. So I flew the P-40 in training only. Then after I got out of that, graduated second lieutenant, 43F was my class. Got my pilot's wings, that's what I went after, I had them. And they sent me down to Drew Field in Tampa, Florida to fly I believe it was 825 Helldivers. And the Air Force had some, although I think it was a Navy ship. And so I stayed in a hotel down there 2 or 3 weeks, and they were backlogged in their training. And finally, they was chasing Rommel around North Africa over there, and the wheels, the commanders were wanting some heavy bombers, B-24s, B-17s. They had enough fighter pilots, so they took our whole class, every one of us, 43F, and put us into bombers. Well, I went out to Alamogordo, New Mexico, and got on the ground floor of a brand new outfit. I was the second pilot assigned to the 720th Squadron in that 450th Bomb Group. And we had 1 airplane, and 1 pilot checked out in that. So I flew as his co-pilot for 30 days. We got another airplane. They moved me over to the left seat, and I now became an aircraft commander at 18 years old.
We'll be back with more of Part 1 of the story of World War II, Korea, and Vietnam veteran, American war hero, United States Air Force Major Gerald French.
I'm Herman Gibson, and this is my son Ed. Back in 1992, I wanted to build my own home and couldn't find a sawmill that could cut a straight board. So we decided to manufacture our own sawmill. We've sold our Logmaster sawmills in all 50 states and throughout the world. Handcrafted in Texas from the finest material using Caterpillar, Cummins, and Kohler engines. Build your dream home or make a great living being your own boss. Logmaster Portable Sawmills puts the power in your hands to make the decisions. Sooner or later, you'll own a Logmaster.
It's the 35th Annual Piney Woods Fair, October 10th through the 14th at the Nacogdoches County Expo Center. This year, all the vendors are inside the new Civic Center. Come and see the Piney Woods cheerleading competition, entertain canning, art, crafts, a photography exhibition, and a petting zoo, the livestock show, a junior tractor pull, and as always, the Evans United Shows Carnival on the Midway. Discount tickets are available in advance. The 35th Annual Piney Woods Fair, October 10th through the 14th at the Nacogdoches County Expo Center.
I'm Lynn Laird.
And I'm Danny Munger. Our family of firms is continuing to grow. In addition to Laird Funeral Home in Nacogdoches and Taylor Funeral Home in Timpson, we are proud to announce the addition of Corrigan Funeral Home in Corrigan to serve the needs of families in Polk County.
Over the years, our family has realized that trust and compassion is a big part in serving your family.
We thank you for the trust that you've honored us with. Family owned and operated, Laird Funeral Home, Taylor Funeral Home, and Corrigan Funeral Home.
Are you longing for the days of homemade food like Mama used to make? You'll find it at the world-famous Purple Pig Cafe. Super 7-inch fried pies, hand-extruded tamales, breakfast including homemade Native American dishes, and of course, the greatest barbecue anywhere. They guarantee that you can cut their brisket with a fork, and they make their own barbecue sauces. We have just added cheese biscuits and fried yeast rolls. The Purple Pig Cafe, 8.5 miles south of Tyler's Loop 323 on Highway 155. See them soon.
Now more with part one of the story of World War II, Korea and Vietnam veteran, American war hero, United States Air Force Major Gerald French.
At 19 years old, I became an aircraft commander of a 4-engine bomber, right? And went overseas in December of '43, and we went the South American route down to West Palm Beach, Puerto Rico, and Belém, and well, Trinidad, Belém, and Natal, Brazil. Each night, stayed one night, refueled, and then we went across the Atlantic to Dakar, Africa. And by the time that all happened, I did that after us. They had chased Ramel out of North Africa, and we landed up in North Africa, a little town there was, well, we landed on the way over Dakar and Casablanca and Algiers and Tunis, and there's a little airport out there between the Atlas Mountains, I believe it's called Châteaudun. We was there about a week. We had to refuel our airplane, and it was going to move us up into southern Italy. And I know it took us, my 10-man crew, 3 days to refuel that airplane with 5-gallon jerry cans. They've come out in a 6-by with these 5-gallon jerry cans of gas, and we formed a chain up on that high wing, 10 men, and it took us 3 days to refuel that airplane with 5-gallon jerry cans. We got up into Italy, and that's where I started my combat, in Italy. And we got up there in December of '43. January of '44, I had a mid-air collision with a ME-109, and they gave me the DFC with a V for Valor on it and all that, because it happened before I got to the target. And what happened, he didn't hit the cockpit, he hit the tail. These MEs, they'd come in 12 o'clock high. Say here's a bomber, they'd come in 12 o'clock high, upside down, and there'd be 6 abreast, and they'd come down firing their 20 millimeters at us, which was outside of our 50 caliber range, and then they come in close enough, we'd start throwing our 50s at them, and every 10th round was a tracer. Well, we'd have a 6-ship box of bombers, and they'd all firing. The nose turret gunners, the top turret gunners, all firing. It was like the 4th of July. These tracers flied all over the place. And these MEs had armor plate underneath the pilot and underneath the engine. So that was their defensive maneuver to come in upside down, and it split S. When they had split S out, upside down, and go down into dive, you'd see these tracers just bouncing off the armor plate. It wasn't doing any damage. That was their defensive maneuver. Well, 5 of them did that. 5 of them split S. One of them came across us upside down, his head right for me. And on the co-pilot, we just instinctively, we ducked. We thought, well, this is it. You can't handle a 4-engine bomber fast enough to evade a fighter too much. Can't move them that fast. But we thought we'd had it because he was closing in right at us upside down. We ducked and he hit our tail, knocked our right rudder and stabilizer, part of it also. Knocked his wing off, and he went down through the undercast. And of course, that put us flying kind of sideways. So I was relinquished. I was flight commander leading. So I relinquished my position because I was flying sideways. And I went out and got around on the tail end of the formation, and I couldn't lead in that configuration. And went on to the target. They dropped my bombs on the target, and I got home and on the co-pilot. Co-pilot was flying. He'd fly the formation, I'd fly the throttles. In 5 minutes, he'd get tired, I'd fly the formation, and he'd fly the throttles. It took 2 men. Those were the days we didn't have girls in those days flying with us. And it's a good thing we did, because it took 2 strong men to fly that airplane. Well, they tried to give me a Silver Star, and I said, well, I can't take it unless you give it to my co-pilot, because it's 50-50. It took us both to fly the airplane. They said, can't give you it's an individual award. I said, well, I'm not going to accept the Silver Star and then go back and face my co-pilot. He did half the work. They said, we'll give you both DFC. And I said, okay, as long as he gets the same thing I get. So they gave us both DFC with a V for Valor.
America's War Heroes will continue with part one of the story of World War II, Korea, and Vietnam veteran, United States Air Force Major Gerald French.
1992, when Dad wanted to build his own home. We make 6 different models of sawmills, stationary or portable, from 7.5 horsepower up to 100 horsepower, gas, diesel, and electric. We also custom build to your specification. When it comes to power, quality, and price, we have no competition. American made, right here in Texas. Build your own home or start your own. We have no competition. American made, right here in Texas. Build your own home or start your own business with a Logmaster sawmill. When thinking people seek a second opinion, they'll buy a Logmaster.
Since 1980, for 32 years, folks from all over East Texas have been driving to Nacogdoches to enjoy the great food at Barn Hills Buffet. Start your meal with a visit to Barn Hills' huge salad bar. Then enjoy fresh catfish, fried chicken, and other meat selections with your choice of 10 vegetables. Top it all off with Barn Hills' delicious cobbler, ice cream, or other desserts. Steak and ribs after 5 p.m. daily. Always outstanding service with a smile. Barn Hills Buffet open 7 days a week at 3217 North Street, Nacogdoches.
We may have changed a lot over the last 10 years, but the way our dad treats our customers won't ever change.
And we'll always have the lowest prices around. And that's not local. Harry Kawasaki,
Your real bottom dollar dealer.
downtown St. Augustine.
Loggins Plumbing, the professional plumbers, family-owned and operated, has been serving East Texans since 1984, specializing in commercial and residential construction and repair, medical gas certified and backflow prevention certified. Loggins Plumbing fleet of service vans, manned by their staff of professional licensed plumbers, is available 24 hours a day. More than 170 combined years of experience by Loggins journeyman and master plumbers. Visa and MasterCard and Discover accepted. Call Loggins for all of your plumbing needs.
We may have changed a lot over the last 10 years, but the way our dad treats our customers won't ever change.
And we'll always have the lowest prices around. And that's not local.
Mike Perry Chevrolet.
The only way, downtown St. Augustine.
You're watching part one of the story of World War II, Korea, and Vietnam veteran, American war hero, Major Gerald French.
Well, anyway, we went on to fly our missions, and that was pretty exciting. And another good time we had over there, I say good time, some of these are good times. We was over the Balkans, and we got into a war over there with a bunch of MEs, and it was pretty close to Italy because we did have some fighter escorts that day. And the P-38s and P-51s was up, they was flying with the MEs all around us, and they were shooting them down, and MEs were firing at us, and we were in a bomber formation, and there was parachutes going down, white parachutes, yellow parachutes, blue, there goes a green one, and so on. The Germans had colored parachutes. They designated whether they were flight commanders or leaders or whatever. I don't know what they meant, but some of them were different colors. Our chutes were all white. So it's like we're sitting